It's such a beautiful sport that I'm glad that people are starting to see the different forms of golf and that it's not only in like the 18-hole country club golf that people are seeing.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to The Deal. I'm Jason Kelly alongside Alex Rodriguez. We are so excited today to have none other than Michelle Wie West with us. Michelle, awesome to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. So you are right, just like exactly the type of person we love to talk to on this show, an incredible athlete who has really excelled in her business endeavors so far. But I want to take you back to one of your first big business decisions, if we can, which is something you have in common with my friend here, Alex. Alex signed with Nike when he was 17, and people don't usually get him on stuff like this, but you've got him. You signed at 15. Walk us through that deal. Like, what was it? What was going through your mind as that all happens? I mean, this is obviously an iconic brand. Walk us through that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I really wasn't too involved with that. I mean, as you expect, a 15-year-old, I really had no interest in, you know, learning about the business. I wish I did in hindsight.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate that my parents were really good with money. My dad was a math major, statistics major, taught statistics at a university. So he was very numbers based and very protective of my legacy and my time and everything. And for me, I just wanted to play golf. And it was funny because back in the day, I don't remember that MTV show, My Sweet 16,
Yeah.
where they had this like lavish birthday parties for 16-year-olds. And I was so obsessed with it. I was like, okay, it'd be really cool if I turned pro on my 16th birthday. I did a big press conference and I did a whole thing. The all I really wanted was that. And in terms of, the technicalities of the contract, I had signed with WME. I was with Jill Smoller, powerhouse of his agent.
Oh my
So I was
gosh.
very well protected in that space. So I just had full trust, and really trusted my parents, really trusted my agent, and my agency. And, I think they had my back. I think I signed a pretty good deal. But when I was playing, I really tried to separate myself from the money aspect of it because I never wanted it to feel like that. And in golf, very different from team sports, you pay for everything up front. You pay for your flights, you pay sometimes for your caddy flights when they're international, your PT, your trainer, your support staff that are coming with you. A lot of times, every week that was my parents, your hotel room. And when you start to think about money, it really starts to mess with your head. And there was like a short period of time when I was playing, I would start thinking about that when I was like missing cuts and playing really poorly. I was like, oh my God, I'm in the red every single week. It makes you not play well. It makes you feel like it's a job and whatnot. And I felt like I played my best when I just separated the two. And I played because I wanted to play well. I wanted to win. I wanted to feel the feeling of that and not because of the money aspect of it. And of course, I was very fortunate, signed some amazing deals with some amazing companies, but I really try to separate the two when I was playing.
So, Michelle, I love that. And our audience just loves this kind of nuanced stuff. When you just mentioned this is totally different than team sports. I couldn't think of paying for a team flight or uniforms or like caddies. Like Bat Boys just come with us, they just show up. When you first started, you mentioned being on the red. How much of an investment up front do you have to make? And how much do you have to make to be in on the black?
Yeah, and that's a great question. My parents, obviously, we're very middle class. My dad was, a professor, my mom was a realtor. And I was very fortunate because time-wise, my parents were very flexible in being able to spend time with me, their time, which is so important. My mom can make her own hours. My dad had spring break and all of summer off. So I was very fortunate in that sense with obviously time being wealth and my parents being able to invest so much of their time with me. But money wise, another factor of it was that I grew up in Hawaii and it's not just a quick drive here and there. It's not like I was born living in Southern California and I could play in all the tournaments. I could just get in a car and drive to Nevada, drive to Scottsdale, drive to the Bay Area. It's a 5-hour, substantial air flight to play in these tournaments. Um, but early on, I contribute a lot of my success to, we call in Hawaii, like, everyone is aunts and uncle. And, even though you're not family, I acquired a lot of amazing aunties and uncles, in Hawaii who, paid for my course fees. I had a lot of support from, my people in Hawaii. And that's kind of why I kind of started this strange career path in terms of playing in PGA Tour events when I was 14 and then qualifying for LPG events when I was 12. And I think a lot of that contributed to the financial aspect of it. I was just trying to find tournaments on island. Sony Open
Mm.
happened 10 minutes from my house. And, when I was 12, I had already won the largest women's amateur event, the most prestigious women's amateur event in Hawaii by 13 strokes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like, where do you go from there, right? And I'm like, "Okay, within that small space," then I started playing in men's events. And then I was like, "Oh, why don't I play in the Sony Open that's 10 minutes from my house? It doesn't cost anything. Or why don't I qualify for the Take Classic, which was on the Big Island when I was 12?" I qualified for the USGA Public Links when I was 10, but, it's so much money. And when you're playing in those amateur events, you don't get anything back. My parents, they sacrificed so much for me to get where I am, but you think about the financial aspect of it, not because I did these things to muster up the image or try to get a bigger deal with Nike. It wasn't even that. It was just pure, I'm just trying to not be so much in the red,
Yeah.
trying to find tournaments local. And that ended up being, I guess, the PGA Tour event, which is the Sony Open, which is kind of wild to think about.
Yeah. What were you thinking about at the time? Did it just feel like, well, this is what I'm doing? Did it feel as radical as it, read to the rest of the world?
No, maybe this is like my 14-year-old self thinking this was like, what? I played on the boys baseball team in Little League. I was the only girl. I made the all-star team. And I was like, this is just like that.
Yeah. And so at that point, I mean, I'd love to. I mean, Alex is a very good golfer. I am a very poor golfer, but we both love the game. Um, I mean, talk to us about golf and the business of golf when you came in, and then maybe fast forward to where we are today for both the overall game and especially for the women's game.
Yeah, you know what's so amazing about golf is that it really opens the doors for you to play with CEOs and high executives. And already when I was 10, 11, 12, I was playing with the most influential people in Hawaii just because they wanted to play with this kid who's like really good at golf. And, we would, have some friendly games, money betting games, and ended up acquiring a big stack of cash, which I was like, I'm going to save this money to buy my first car. That's what's so powerful about the game of golf. And I get so passionate about getting more girls of color into the game of golf just because there's no other sport that connects you to the most powerful people in the world.
So, Michelle, just want to follow up on that. I mean, that is an interesting concept of someone so young, you're female, you're still in college, and you're playing with some of the most successful CEOs, as you said, in the world. At what point in those 18 holes do you know I may have some traction here? Is it, the back nine? And do you sometimes kind of misread it? Like, oh my God, I'm going to get a deal here, and you get nothing. And sometimes you think, oh, this was quite pedestrian, and you get a big deal. Has that ever happened? And when do you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's so specific like that, but I think the world, everything is about connections and making human connections with people. And I've been very fortunate in my life. And I think, I think golf is so different from other sports like even like baseball or football or basketball. When you're signed with a company, you're not going out, the CEO is not playing a sport, like, let's say, they sign a really famous football player. These CEOs are not just being like, "Hey, let's just pad up and let's play football against each other," right? They don't get these, like, organic experiences, whereas golf, you're spending 5 hours of, like, meaningful connecting time with these top CEOs, and I think it's extremely powerful, but it's gotten me in some very interesting rooms and, feel very blessed about that.
And what do you think about sort of the state of the game now, Michelle? I mean, it feels like we're at this fascinating moment for both the men's tours and the women's game as well. You know, we've had changeovers in leadership across the board. As you look at the state of golf, you know, as someone who obviously played it at the very highest level and someone who cares about the game, like, what do you make of it at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think the men's side and the women's side, are, they have some connecting past, but I think the women's side, I'm extremely excited about the new leadership. Our purses are getting bigger on our tour. We're getting better viewership. I still think there's a lot that needs to be done. To give what these girls what they deserve in terms of, media attention and viewership on broadcast. On the men's side, it's definitely a little messier right now, and I think they're trying to find their way. But yeah, I think it's exciting time for both men and women. There's a lot of change going on. There's a lot of competition going on, especially on the men's side, and if in terms of leagues. And when that happens, I always think there's a net positive at the end of it.
It also feels like even more broadly that the game is like gaining steam. I mean, you think about I know you're involved with TGL as an owner. We got a chance to interview Mike McCarley on this show. I was able to see one of the matches live and in person. What attracted you to that as a deal in terms of growing the game?
Yeah, I was very intrigued from the moment I heard about TGL when they were incorporating the amount of technology that they are with simulator golf and all sorts of technology. I love the aspect of bringing the game indoors into an arena. I think that's kind of like one thing that golf is so great about, but in terms of spectatorship, live spectatorship, it's hard. It's hard to, as a spectator, to go out to the golf course, especially in the summer when it's hot, to follow your favorite golfer for 5 hours walking. I think bringing it indoors brings a more casual viewership, more casual spectator into the game. With the rise of Top Golf and golf simulators all over the country, I think it just really brings on a fun new twist to the game. I went to one TGO match live and I was so impressed. I was blown away. I think the tunnel is such a fun idea. It kind of brings in the fun aspects of like NBA, NFL, like that energy into golf, which I think is so refreshing. I think TGL is a great supplement to, you know, we use quote unquote real grass golf. I think it's just a really fun way that you can see team sport in professional golf and see these guys' personalities and see the technology. It's pretty cool. I'm excited about it.
And Michelle, you talked about how well and how happy you are with where women's golf is today. But just wondering, obviously, there's always a ways to go in everything. When you think about if there's two things you can do, one or two things that you can do to improve the game and make it better, what would be those two things?
I can go on and on about this. Yeah, I think that the TV quality, the broadcast quality of our tournament needs to get a lot better, and that means more cameras on site, more on-screen technology, more, and this is my second point, which I'm gonna bake into one, is better statistics. On our tour, the caddies still write down statistics, shots gained and all of that. They still manually
Wow.
write it down instead of it being automated and whatnot. And that, comes hand in hand with sports betting. And, obviously that's people have their views on that and whatnot, but it is a fact that sports betting does drive viewership in terms of people who watch sports. And when we don't have really accurate statistics, it's hard for people to get into sports betting, which obviously, again, like, that's a very controversial topic. But I do think that we need to work on our broadcast quality in terms of number of cameras on site. I believe that the men have. more than triple the amount of cameras that are on site. So they cut to a lot of places. I think it just came out that a lot of stuff isn't really live anymore. They just cut to the best shots, and it just produces so much more drama, so much more excitement. Whereas our tour, you have maybe one camera following the lead group or a couple of cameras based around the golf course, and our players look slower to the TV viewer because one camera is just following one player a lot longer instead of cutting back and forth. And people, especially nowadays with our lack of attention span, we need that better cutting back and forth. So, I think if we can increase our broadcast quality, I think our viewership will also rise. And I think if we have better statistics, I think the people who are talking about our game will have more stats to back it up with instead of being like, oh, Nelly Corda's a really great player. And you're like, why? And you're like,
Right.
well, 'cause she is, uh,
Yeah.
like, I think statistics really help in that sense, which I think we are going in the right direction, and I think that's just really helpful in viewership as well too.
Well, it's interesting to think about that in the context of one of your latest deals, Michelle, which is partnering up with Together, who famously has Everyone Watches Women's Sports, their T-shirt, their iconic shirt. Sue Bird was a guest on this show and talked a lot to us about sort of the origin story there. When you think about, I mean, it does seem like what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is there is proof out there. There's increasing proof out there that if the quality of the broadcast is good, if the quality of the content is good, and it's available, people will watch it. People will watch women's sports. Was that part of the idea that you wanted to get involved with Together? What was the sort of impetus for you getting involved with them?
I, have been a very big fan of Together for a while since they kinda came out, since the origin. I just saw how beautifully their storytelling was. I thought the different aspects of, reporting the news is one thing, but also storytelling, the athlete behind the moments leading up to the moment, I thought were so beautifully done. Obviously a big fan of, all the OG Together crew, Alex, Chloe, Sue, all of them. And I've gotten pretty close with Alex and her husband, Servando, and,
Alex
they are
Morgan, you're talking. Sorry to
Alex
interrupt you.
Morgan,
Alex
yes, yeah,
Morgan.
yeah.
Yeah.
Alex Morgan, yeah, yeah. And, her husband Servando, and, we've just been talking a lot about golf and, been noticing on their content, they're very heavy into, WNBA and soccer and sports that they know really well, and, they wanted to expand into golf, and we just started talking, and obviously, I'm very passionate about, women's golf and furthering that, so it was a perfect fit.
By the way, Alex, I love the idea that they're like, "Oh god, I wish we could get into women's golf. Who could help us get into Oh, I mean, maybe Michelle Wie West. I mean, would that be the and the idea that you're interested, I mean, that is that's a dream matchup. It feels like. I imagine they were receptive when you first had that conversation.
Yeah, no, I just was honored that they were even thinking of me or came to me. But yeah, it's been really cool to see how excited there are about learning about golf in general. I think a lot of the people that are working on the social side of, Together are getting really into golf in general. We want the casual viewership to go up, right? And we have a very amazing niche in women's golf where the people that are excited about women's golf are really excited about women's golf, right? But I think, kind of incorporating the casual golf viewers, not just even men or women. I'm not even going to go gender. I'm just talking about the casual golfer, the top golfer, the people who go to putt putt or pop stroke. We want those viewers to get excited about women's golf.
So, Michelle, I want to transition a little bit. When you think about athletes and entrepreneurs, mentorship is such a big component of it. And you have some royalty around you. Obviously, your mother played golf ever since you were, basically born. But then you're married to Johnny West, who works with the Warriors. And his father's the late, great Jerry West, who was a friend and a mentor of mine and also known as the logo in the NBA. Is there anything that you feel that you've learned from both of them, maybe start with your mother, that has really helped shape your career? And anything from, the late Jerry West that you learned that you still carry today?
Oh, for sure. First, I think the lessons that I learned from my mom, she was Miss Korea. She was a dancer, played golf. I think from her, I learned it was okay to be different. It was okay to have passions. And I think when you look at my mom and my dad came from a very traditional educational family, went down the PhD route, became a professor. And my mom, when I hear of her childhood, it was, very unique, very different. She would skip school to go to dance class, and she was in pageants and she was a kid and traveled the world, dedicated her passion to that. So I think, also my mom's younger brother was a professional bowler. And fun
Mm,
fact, I think he won the gold medal when he was 13 as as a bowler.
Whoa.
Yeah,
that's
so
cool.
I know. So it's like it's very split between my dad's side of the family, who's all PhDs, all doctors, and my mom's side of the family, who's in the arts and the sports. So my mom always kind of told me to dream big, to look at things bigger, to not put yourself in a category. And then, meeting my husband and, his family, it was amazing to, spend time with Jerry and to witness the passion. Even I mean, obviously I did not know him when he played, and I've only known him in his kind of post-playing career. It's just it was amazing to see his passion in not only furthering the sport, but like players as well. And when you talk about mentorship, I don't think there was anyone better at mentoring than my father-in-law. He would spend hours a day talking to players. Um, who either came to him for advice about what should I do about post-retirement? How do I get past this injury? I'm in a mental funk. What do I do? He just left the door so open for so many players to reach out to him, which I really I was so impressed with.
We're going to get to our lightning round in just a second, but I did want to end with this notion of what's happening in golf, because you mentioned something really interesting, Michelle, which is this idea that it feels like, and maybe it's because I'm super into golf right now, but like my 22-year-old's really into it. My 20-year-old is really into it. My 7-year-old daughter is like, it has her like little junior clubs, like sub junior clubs. It does feel like golf is having a moment, and part of it does feel like it's driven by social media, by people sort of seeing, eh, for lack of a better term, people who they like and respect, people who they identify with playing. How does that continue, and how do you accelerate that? And maybe that gets into some of the work you're doing with Together.
For sure. I mean, I think it's amazing to see the actual numbers go up every year about the number of kids that get into sport. And I think I have to give a lot of kudos to the creators that are in golf.
Yeah.
The YouTube golf, I need to learn more about YouTube. I'm not cool enough to learn about it, but it's incredible, like, the followings that these people have. But like Echo was saying, we need to get more casual viewers into the game of golf. And that's what I love about TGL as well, is that there are so many different forms of golf. When people used to think about what golf was, it was this very narrow viewpoint of what golf is, which is country club, stuffy, old, white. And I think that the creators are changing that mentality. I think TGL is changing that mentality. I think social media, like you said. And my husband said a really interesting point yesterday. He read in an article that if you are parents that play golf and your kids play golf, you end up spending 18% more time with your kids if your kids play
Mm,
golf, which I thought was so
mm,
fascinating and so
Yeah.
cool. I think golf is one of the rare sports that you can play multi-generationally. You can play with your grandfather, your grandmother, your parents, your, son, daughter. And it's such a beautiful sport that I'm glad that people are starting to see the different forms of golf and that it's not only in like the 18-hole country club golf that people are seeing.
All right. So we like to end every episode with a lightning round. It's just 5 questions. We'll bounce it back and forth. Just say whatever, pops into your head. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received on deal making or business?
Oh, I would say, I mean, obviously, when people say trust your gut, I think that's extremely important. But I do a lot of angel investing. Someone told me um, it's all about the founder. It's all about the CEO. It's not about the idea. It's about the CEO. And I find that really interesting in early stage investing because if you only get so hooked on the idea, but you're unsure about the CEO, it never really ends up well because with early stage investing, the idea changes all the time.
Mm.
And it centers around how good of a CEO you are, how good of a founder you are. So I've learned to trust my gut more on the founder slash CEO of the team rather than the singular idea.
Mm. Who's your dream deal making partner?
Ooh, good question. Actually, I started working with Patrick and Co., which is a company that really helps athletes with their deals. So they've been a really great partner with me so far.
That's a good one. I was going to shout out our buddy Mark Patrikoff before
Yeah.
this was over, so I'm glad you mentioned him. All right, what team do you want to see win a championship more than any?
I mean, the Warriors
Yeah, okay, good answer. That's good for,
and the Valkyries, and yeah, and the
Oh,
Valkyries.
yeah. Okay, that's a good one. The Valkyries, of course, the newest team in the WNBA. As Alex well knows.
All right.
Go on, Alex.
Yes. All right, Michelle. What's your hype song before a big meeting or a big negotiation?
Ooh, great question. I don't even honestly, I don't even know adult music right now.
Ah,
And it's like right now, if you like put a gun to my head and you're like, "Let's answer it right now," it'd be Steve's Lava Chicken
yeah.
from Minecraft.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I love Pink Pony Club. But yeah, right now, this very moment, the song that I've listened to the most and it kind of gets me hyped is Steve's Lava Chicken from Minecraft.
What's your advice for someone listening who wants a career like yours? Which, by the way, you have a singular career, but maybe if they want to sort of make a transition to business like you have so successfully.
Yeah, I've actually talked to now a lot of the players who are thinking about making the transition, and I just can only obviously talk from my personal point of view. And for me, deciding to retire was a very personal decision, but I think I was so happy with the decision because it felt so right. Um,
Mm.
I would say don't rush into it. Don't be so fixated on your feeling right now. I think there's so many times in my career where I wanted to quit just because that moment was so hurtful or so tough. It's not a emotional decision. When I actually decided to retire, it was such a calm decision, non-emotional. I wouldn't say rational, but it felt non-emotional. I mean, again, I'm just speaking for myself. When you can get to that place, I think then that's the right moment to make a decision.
All right. Well, Michelle Wie West, this has been such a treat for us. You've been on our list for a long time, so I'm glad we finally made it happen. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.